Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. In this edition, we'll be previewing Tottenham's next game. Of course, it is Chelsea at home on Sunday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 4:30 p.m. kickoff. In this episode, I'm joined by a good friend of mine and, of course, star of ITV's The Chase. It is Mr. Shaun Wallace, the legend Shaun Wallace. Shaun, how are you?
Great to see you again, Chris. It's my third time I'm on this show. Every time, no, I think it's my fourth actually. So I'm really, really pleased to actually come back on a wonderful, great podcast.
We love having you here, even though you're a Chelsea fan. And let's start with that. Actually, Shaun, let's start with talking about it's over 20 years now since you've become the champion of Mastermind. Where has those 20 years gone?
It's just flown by, Chris. Sometimes I still got to pinch myself and, realise that, it did happen. I don't suffer from an imposter syndrome, but sometimes you do think, wow, it really did happen to me, and it has. And I'm really grateful for how my life turned out thus far.
What have you been up to lately? Anything interesting? Is it still filming The Chase non-stop?
Yeah, still filming, still in court, still doing loads of quizzes. Looking forward to my annual trip to Jamaica in about 3 weeks' time. So I'm really looking forward to sort of winding down the clock and sort of, having a relaxing time.
Shaun, because you're on The Chase so often, I'm sure you must get stopped in the street by so many people. What's the most common question people ask you?
How's Bradley? I really love Frank Schmeller. Yeah, those are the two most common questions. Bradley Ward and Schmeller. Yeah.
And I bet people expect you to know absolutely everything, don't they?
Most things, some people obviously, at the ready with a question, and sometimes I sort of could, riposte with the answer, and sometimes if I don't know, I don't know, Chris. So, and if they beat me to chaser, I say, listen, dine out on it for the rest of your life.
I know your specialist subject on Mastermind is FA Cup finals. What are the clubs that you know a lot about? What would you be really confident in answering questions about? Which teams?
What you mean in terms of FA Cup finals?
Just generally.
If it's on FA Cup finals, specifically in relation to clubs, I think I could do a really, really good job. If it's the England football team, again, fancy answers. European Cup finals, I'll be really, really good.
Shaun, how are you feeling as a Chelsea fan right now? Because so far it's been a pretty good season for you guys.
I'm pleased. I'm not going to get too carried away. Somebody said to me that Chelsea are definitely top four. Chris, you know how things can turn over, how things can change. I remember this time last year, Spurs were top of the league. We went to White Hart Lane. We won 4-1. So things can change. So I'm pleased of the progress we're making, and nothing more than that.
Shaun, the last time you were on was back in August when the season had just started and Chelsea were travelling to Molineux to face Wolves. You actually predicted a Wolves win because you weren't that confident about this season. Have you been surprised?
I have been very surprised. I've been very surprised with the manager, pleasantly surprised. The only thing that I'm really concerned about is our goalkeeper. I'm not too confident about our centre halves, but from the sort of midfield going forward, it's just fantastic.
Shaun, how would you describe this season so far? Because, of course, Chelsea is sitting second in the league, and some people are even saying, are Chelsea title contenders? Is that pushing it a bit?
I think that's pushing it a lot. I wouldn't say pushing it a bit, I'd say pushing it a lot. The one thing I like what Maresca's doing, the way in which he's managing our European campaign alongside our Premier League campaign. And this is the one time where we can clearly see that Chelsea do have strength in depth because we appear to be running away with the sort of Europa Conference League. But as I say, wait till we get to the sort of latter stages because that's when the sort of teams will really shine. So we're doing really, really well. But in the Premier League, I must say, I have been pleasantly surprised how we've been playing. Really have been.
Shaun, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but when a team goes out and spends £1 billion on players, you should have a lot of strength in depth, shouldn't you?
We should, but as I say, the money was spent on potential. It wasn't spent on experience. And as I say, we saw last year, although I thought Pochettino did a very, very good job, I think he should still be credited with the way in which the players have continued in their second season. Okay, Maresca come and brought in his own philosophy, but I still think that a lot of credit has got to be given to Pochettino. I was really disappointed when he left. I wasn't surprised because I think, especially towards the end of the season, the Chelsea hierarchy kept on moving the bar. And once he said he wanted certain players and there was an impasse between both him and the hierarchy, there was only going to be one outcome. He was going to leave. So he done really well to get us into Europe, especially where we were when we got hammered 5-0 by Arsenal. But I think we only lost once in our last, 10, 12 matches. So he done really, really well.
Shaun, the few Chelsea fans that I actually talked to, they kind of didn't really like the appointment of Mauricio Pochettino. What did you make of it? And I know you've said that, he deserves a little bit of credit. And also, what do you make of the appointment of Enzo Maresca? Because he seems to have come in and done a terrific job.
Right, as I say, I know obviously because of the sort of enmity of his long associated with Spurs, people saying we didn't want Pochettino, but I thought he did a very, very good job. It's a shame that we didn't win that Carabao Cup final. I thought the Chelsea players let him down, especially in the last 15 minutes of that game where Liverpool were dead on their feet and Chelsea should have taken the game to them. They were refreshed by the sort of crop of kids who came on and basically did Liverpool proud. That was disappointing, but that wasn't his fault. At least he took us to a cup final. They then set the sort of recalibrated the target and basically said we've got to get into Europe, and we did. So I thought he did really, really well. I was a bit reticent about the appointment of Maresca because I thought he seemed to be like a hierarchy yes man, but he's come in and he's done his own thing. It seems to be working now. So fair play to Maresca. I think he's done really well. I still think his persistence with Robert Sanchez is a bit misguided, but that's just me.
Shaun, what have you made of Tottenham so far this season?
Hot and cold. The dismantling of Aston Villa was a highlight for me. They've been really, really good. And as I say, the player I'm really concerned about is Johnson. He's hit the ground running, scored a lot of goals. Solanke seems to be easing in. I think James Madison needs to hit the heights he hit in the first 10 games before he got an injury against us last November. He doesn't seem to be the same player, but those 2 goals he scored against that performance against Man City on his 28th birthday was impressive. And it just goes to show that Spurs once Spurs get that consistency, then you're going to see Spurs really challenging. And I'm not just saying that because you're a friend of mine, but I really do hope when they meet Manchester United in the Carabao Cup final, A, they take it seriously, B, they take the game to Manchester United because they're playing at home, because that is a real opportunity for Spurs to finally end the sort of taunting by other fans that you've got a bare cabinet and it's an echo when you open it. So I think they stand a realistic chance of winning that. But the one thing I would say about I like Ange Postecoglou. I told you I really like him, but he's not flexible in terms of his tactics. That high line he keeps on playing could be his undoing. Because I still think sometimes, I don't know if Van der Ven's going to be available on Sunday. I hope he's not.
No, he's not.
It's a shame because the combination between him and Romero, who I still think still needs to show that a little bit. He's much more mature than he was last year when he kept getting all those red cards, getting all those bookings. And I think I told you that I was really disappointed for an Argentina World Cup winner to be playing. He should be a leader. I think he's matured a lot this season, but Spurs need that consistency.
Have you been surprised, Shaun, by watching Tottenham and their inconsistency this year, being that it is Ange Postecoglou's second season?
No, I'm not surprised by the inconsistency because that's Tottenham. But what is pleasantly surprising is that when Tottenham really are at the races, they are just as good as any Premier League team who are currently playing. So, Spurs really need to get that sort of level of consistency running, a good sort of string of victories together, and you'll see the confidence surge through the team. And it's a shame that your goalkeeper is out because I really rate him. But the performance I saw Fraser Foster pull off against, was it Manchester City? He was excellent. Or no, in that 1-1 draw against, I don't know who you drew with. Fulham. He was excellent in that game. And you can see why he played for England. I hope he doesn't have the same sort of level of performance against us tomorrow, but that's me just being a biased Chelsea fan. But for me, Chris, that's what Spurs need. They need that consistency. If they have that consistency, and Postecoglou's flexible in his tactics, because remember, I think I said to you when we spoke after the game last season, Spurs are down to 9 men. All they had to do was play in a low block. And they had 2 opportunities. I think it was Bentancur came on, almost got a header. Song had that shot because Chelsea were running out of ideas. But sooner or later, we were going to spring that offside trap, and we did. And I think I said to you before, although I didn't really rate Jackson's performances because of the fact that he kept on snatching at chances, kept on missing chances. And I think I said somewhat unfairly that he scored the worst hat-trick I've ever seen in Premier League history.
Yeah,
that's the reason why we won. And I thought even in that 4-1 defeat, I thought the best player for Spurs was the goalkeeper because he was outstanding.
Shaun, the one thing that we do seem to be consistent at is appointing new managers, because since and including Pochettino in 2019, Spurs have had 7 different managers in the dugout. Now, a lot of people at the moment, even you've probably seen the videos and the scenes from the Bournemouth game on Thursday evening, that a lot of the away end was actually, or the manager went and confronted the away end because they were extremely unhappy with the performance, the performances of late, and of course what Ange Postecoglou is doing. Do you think Ange Postecoglou is going to be given the time by these Spurs fans? Because I tell you now, a lot of Tottenham Hotspur fans are dreading this game against Chelsea.
They're only dreading it because of what's happened in the past. I still think Spurs will raise their game tomorrow. I really do. So I still think he should be given time. What I think he's made himself a hostage to fortune by basically saying, "I always win trophies in the second season." He shouldn't have said that, because now you've got to go now, and that's why I think you've got to win that Carabao Cup, or at least get to the final. I still think that he should be given a little bit more time. There was a sort of a feel-good factor in the first 11 games last season when Spurs were top of the league. Everything was Ange. He spoke well. The Spurs fan faithful loved him. But you've got to stay with your manager and the team through the rough times and the good times. Spurs need to be consistent. That's what it is. But I still think that Postecoglou has got to show a degree of flexibility in his tactics. He's got to. You can't constantly be playing that high line. If they play that high line against us tomorrow without the insurance pace of Van der Ven, they're going to be in big trouble.
Let me ask you for a prediction, Shaun. Who's going to be the Spurs manager at the start of the next Premier League season?
Postecoglou.
Okay.
I still think I'm going to stick my neck out and say you're going to win the Carabao Cup.
Enzo Maresca at Stamford Bridge, do you think he's going to be given the time? Because Chelsea fans seem to be very impatient, even though you've won so many trophies in recent years. You guys seem to win trophies, but you still sack managers.
Yeah, I was bewildered, but again, the sort of car crash philosophy under the Abramovich era yielded results. So I think he'll be given time. It's a young squad. I think in time, I still think we need an experienced leader at the back. We need a very good goalkeeper. If we have those two, then that's when I'm going to say Chelsea in the conversation when it comes to competing for the biggest prizes. But until we have that, I'm not convinced with Robert Sanchez. He might be a great shot stopper, but his positioning sometimes leaves a lot to be desired. And the goal he let in against Arsenal, I was just horrified. They've been at the near post, and he really, he's not a bad shot stopper. The only game I've really seen him play really well was in a 1-1 draw against Nottingham Forest this season. He was excellent, but again, not for me.
You don't like him saying that he's your number one, then, Shaun?
No, he's certainly not my number one. I would never have got rid of the keeper we had last year. I thought he was very good.
Shaun, can you describe what Maresca has actually done since his arrival from Leicester? Because, you know, the days of under Pochettino last year, it was very inconsistent. I feel myself that he brought Chelsea on and he got them to a much better place, but the results weren't always there. But Maresca seems to have come in and done a fantastic job. What's been the major changes for you?
Well, I think what he's done, which, you know, he had to be ruthless. His approach in the beginning, you know, at the start of the season in terms of getting rid of the established players, you know, bombing them out, you know, talking about Sterling, you know, sort of sidelining Chilwell. I mean, basically what he was doing, he was putting his stamp on the club. And, you know, he's given them a way of how he wants them to play. I think Cole Palmer is much more disciplined instead of the sort of free-rolling, roving play he's got now. And our two wingers have been really good. I mean, the person I would make sure he plays week in, week out, as long as he stays fit, is Neto. Neto is a fantastic wide player. Jackson, okay, he's scoring goals, but again, you know, you want somebody who's consistently, okay, he's scoring, he's done quite well, but, you know, sometimes he snatches at chances where chances really should be buried. I prefer Nkunku. I think he's a better player, I think he's a better striker, but I don't pick the team.
Shaun, I was going to say, what individuals would you say that Maresca is getting a lot more out of than, say, Pochettino was getting out of the players last season?
Well, I think the most improved player, and I think that's a combination of him playing fantastically for Spain, is Cucurella. He's come on leaps and bounds. I mean, we're singing in his praises. If it was down to me last season, he wouldn't even be playing for the junior level. He was that bad. But he's developed a consistency because he put in some outstanding performances for Spain in the Euros, and he just brought that on. So I think he's developed leaps and bounds. I think giving Colwell the sort of you know, a starting berth in the sort of back four has been really, really good. But a standout player for me when he's come in the team has been Lavia. He's been absolutely excellent. And that's why Fernandez has really struggled to actually nail down a regular starting berth in the Premier League team. So Lavia's been really good. Caicedo is now beginning to justify why we spent that money on him. So he's been really consistent.
Yeah. Well, the team news ahead of this game, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Ben Davies is now out of a hamstring. Romero is expected to be back, having missed the past 4 games. Odegaard, Richarlison, Van de Ven, Rocario, they all remain out, and Bentancur is still suspended. Chelsea team news, Mudryk will miss out because of illness, and Reece James and Wesley Fofana will be missing with hamstring issues. Mudryk misses out because of illness. Shaun, what have you made of him so far? Because it was a big money move.
Big money move, and sadly, it's not paid off. And I think there's going to have to come a time where Chelsea are either going to cut their losses and just say, you know, you just get. Sometimes it's hard to actually, you know, players as young as him coming from a foreign country to settling in such a big club. I think it'd have been better off if he actually went to Arsenal as opposed to us hijacking that move and spending all that money. And sometimes I think, you know, the transfer fee does weigh heavily on young shoulders. It was weighing heavily on Caicedo's shoulders, but he seems to have lifted it. But Mudryk, when he has come in, has shown flashes of what he can do. He's been really good in the sort of the European team, if I can call it that expression. But I don't know. I think he wouldn't be in my starting 11. I probably will try and cut my losses and sort of either loan him out and see if he can get confidence playing regularly, or just simply cut your losses and sell him.
Shaun, I don't know whether I want to give you these excuses about injuries, and I hate it when fans say, "Oh, we've got so many injuries," but Tottenham have a lot of injuries at the moment.
They do.
And it's fair to say that since Postecoglou arrived at Tottenham, we have had so many injuries and other issues off the pitch as well. But I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion on the Premier League overall this season? Because you've just mentioned there, you've got injuries as well. A lot of teams this season have so many injuries. What do you put that down to?
Too many games. Simple as that. And there's going to come a time whereby it's going to be so bad that you're going to see the quality of the performances suffer because your best players are not there. And then at the end of the season, they're going to be playing the Club World Cup. Then they've got this sort of chat. You know, if you're in European football, you can play European football. It's far too much games. They need to cut. They need to actually reform that calendar. And Rodri's right. I mean, the reason why Rodri's injured is because of the fact that he's fatigue contributed to that ACL injury. So I think it's I would never ever turn around and say a club can say, most clubs have the same injuries. So, but the reason why it is because there's too many games, and I think the Premier League are putting finance before player welfare.
Yeah,
and something's got to give.
Yeah. How would you change it though, Shaun? Because of course, in the Europa Conference League, Europa League, Champions League, of course, it is now the new format. It means even more games for these players. How do you change it?
What I would definitely have is a winter break. Absolutely, winter break. Let the players recharge themselves. Harry Kane loves the fact that, as I say, at Christmas time he can spend time with his family, can go off and relax, and sort of begin the training 2 weeks into January to resume the season. There's got to be a winter break. I don't know why Britain is so reticent in relation to the fact that we need to be playing Christmas football when these players. I'm not saying okay after Christmas, but I'd say from the New Year onwards for a period of 3 weeks there should be a break.
Shaun, what have you made of the refereeing and officiating so far this calendar year?
Just as inconsistent as it is disappointing sometimes. One decision in one game can be right, and the same decision is wrong. So there's still got to be that consistency in terms of refereeing. I've never been a fan of VAR. I would only use VAR really for offside, and they reckon they're now going to make it even more accurate by using AI to actually cut down mistakes. But it takes too long for decisions. And as I've always said to you, Chris, football is about skill and human error. Football's about skill and human error. Right? As long as the referee is, has, and all referees, I think, have the highest integrity. If they make a mistake, they make a mistake, but they're refereeing the game. So I've never been a fan of VAR. I think it slows the game down. You can't celebrate a goal when the goal goes in because you don't know whether or not you're onside or offside. The refereeing is far too inconsistent. The standard, you've got Howard Webb who's supposed to be, the man in sorting it out, but it's still far too inconsistent for me. Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, Shaun, Chelsea are second in the Premier League table, 28 points from 14 matches, 7 points behind Liverpool. Of course, their game didn't go ahead today. It was postponed against Everton. Who is in the title race for you? Because City have had a very disappointing start. They've still got issues. They drew today. Liverpool, of course, didn't play. You've got Arsenal there. They've been inconsistent as well and have bottled the league the last couple of seasons. Who are the title contenders for you this season?
For me, it's still the top three: Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City. Okay, Man City are inconsistent, but I still think you can't look beyond those three in terms of where the destination of the Premier League is likely to end up. As I say, I'm glad Chelsea are doing well. If we manage to secure a top four berth this season, then I'll be looking to next season for us to make a serious challenge. But we can only do that once the spine of the team is perfect. A decent goalkeeper, a commanding centre half, a midfield is dominating, and a person who could put the ball in the back of the net week in, week out. We had that for nearly 20 odd years on and off, but we're not there yet.
Shaun, let's go through the games that Chelsea have played so far this season. Won 8, drawn 4 and lost 2. The wins have come across against Bournemouth, Wolves, West Ham, Brighton, Newcastle, Leicester, Aston Villa and Southampton. The draws against Crystal Palace, Forest, Man United and Arsenal. And the 2 defeats have come across the 2 title contenders, if you like, Manchester City and Liverpool. Talk us through some of those games, what you've been happy with, what you've not been so happy with.
In the first game, as I say, when we lost, we played Man City in the first game. Again, we had chances which we didn't take, and City being City did take them. Again, when we played Liverpool, okay, we started okay, but when we went up there, the thing I was hoping for was that we didn't lose, and I was hoping against hope, but we did. In the other games, I thought Bournemouth played really well, but Nkunku showed he can easily come off the bench, take his chances, and that's why we won that game. I was at the West Ham game because that's one of the fixtures I always like going to, West Ham Chelsea away, and we just tore them apart. So when we play and against Wolves, when I thought that we were going to really struggle, Madueke was just absolutely excellent. That's what got him into the England squad. That wonderful hat-trick.
Yeah.
So when Chelsea have played well, we played well against the sides on paper that we should beat. I mean, when we put Southampton to the sword on Wednesday night, it was just a phenomenal display. But if we want to be in the conversation, it's games against Manchester City and against the Liverpools of this world, which will basically determine whether or not we are in the conversation. And until we played well against Arsenal. I thought we played well against Arsenal, but and we didn't lose that. So it's going to be interesting when we play the return leg at the Emirates Stadium. I mean, last year they really put us to the sword when we lost 5-0. But let's see where we are at the end of January. If we're still in the top 4 and playing really, really well, let's see where we are.
Shaun, what do you hope Chelsea do in the January transfer window, and also what do you think that Spurs will do?
I think what Chelsea need, they're hard to find. One of the biggest signings we made in the last 5 or 6 years when we signed Thiago Silva, and if we could sign a sort of mature, experienced centre half who can sort of marshal and nurture our back line like Thiago did, then, as I say, we'll be in the. I wish he could still play now, but obviously at the age of 41 he can't. I still think we need a really good goalkeeper. Really do. I'm not convinced with Robert Sanchez. I'll persist with Jackson. I persist with because I still think that he's now beginning to grow in confidence in terms of his second season. Still needs to be more consistent in taking his chances. But as I told you before, Chris, I prefer Nkunku to be leading the line for me. As for Spurs, I still think that what they do need is a quality left back. I mean, Udogie, still a bit too green for me. Always a little mistake in him. I still think you need a really good commanding left back. Porro's good on the right. He's good on the right. I still think you need to give that guy, what's the name? You signed from Nottingham Forest.
Jed Spence.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's not been given an opportunity. I still think.
So are a lot of Spurs fans, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's about time he should be given an opportunity. But I still think that's what you need. Your forward line's looking good. Going forward, Spurs are really good. But I still think you need to sort out a decent left back. Probably your Romanian centre half is not too bad. I quite like him. I think he should be starting. I think he should start tomorrow. Hope he does start tomorrow because he's a good player.
Yeah, he did.
But I think in relation to the fullback positions, I think Spurs really need to strengthen.
Shaun, let me ask you about the European campaign so far in the Europa Conference League, because it was only a couple of years ago that Spurs were in the competition for the very first time when the competition was started. Spurs fans seem to be very, very snobby about that competition, and I don't know why, because we haven't won a trophy in nearly 17 years.
Exactly.
You guys seem to have taken it very seriously. Do you hope that you carry on like that? And you?
Yes,
I was going to say, is there a pressure under Maresca? The fact that so many previous managers have won trophies, is that the reason why he's taking that seriously, that competition?
I think so, and I think obviously history will reckon if we win that, then obviously we would have won every competition there is. So I think there's that added incentive. If we can win the Europa Conference League, West Ham managed to do it. I don't see why we can't do it. Interestingly enough, last week I was watching Match of the Day, and Mark Chapman on Match of the Day too seemed to actually denigrate the Europa Conference League, and I love what Mark Moore said. What's wrong with the Europa Conference League? And Chapman had to resign from that. Listen, it's a trophy.
I agree.
It's a recognised trophy from the governing body of Europe. So if you're in it, you've got to be able to want to win. You've got to want to win it, and we certainly want to win that. I'm telling you.
Yeah. What have you made of Tottenham in the Europa League, and do you think the Spurs could go all the way?
I think Spurs can do really well. The Europa League is going to be challenging, but as I say, again, with Spurs, they need to show that consistency. Remember, back in the day...
You do let me down gently with your answers, you know.
Yeah. Back in the day, Spurs were the first team to win the UEFA Cup. Remember, back in 72? First team to do so. They're the first British team to win 2 European trophies. They won it again in 84. So they know how to win that competition. And what they need to do is to basically come off this high horse that Pochettino used to have beforehand, that I'm only interested in the Premier League and the Champions League. Well, really? Listen, there's only a couple of teams can win that, and Spurs weren't one of them. So once Spurs get out of that sort of mentality, that sort of snobby, condescending mentality in terms of a trophy to trophy, then probably the floodgates will open in that regard. Because remember, for me, I always used to say, I always want to win the League Cup. Because if you win the League Cup, it sets your season up. It sets your season up.
Yeah.
Liverpool used to do it. Nottingham Forest used to do it. What did they used to do? They either won the European Cup or they won the league at the end. Chelsea used to do it. We either won the league or we won the FA Cup. Or the League Cup is an important trophy. And I could never understand why Arsene Wenger used to turn his nose up against it. And in 2004, if he didn't have that attitude, his team probably would have gone on to win the Grand Slam. But they didn't.
I do feel, Shaun, that is one of our biggest games of the season, that Manchester United quarter-final, which is coming up very, very soon.
And I will be sort of secretly rooting for Spurs. Because if Spurs can win that, just like us last year, we drew Newcastle in the quarterfinals. We beat them. I thought, right, okay, we're one game from the semi-final. Won that semi-final. Brilliant. We're in the final. And I thought we could do Liverpool, but we didn't. But you're in the final. Once you're in the final, you've got an opportunity to win it. I remember in 2021, Spurs got to the Carabao Cup final against Man City, and they made the disaster decision of sacking Mourinho, who knows how to get teams to the final. Why would you sack Mourinho? And he knows how to beat Pep Guardiola. I thought that was a crazy decision. And I personally think, okay, you can never ever sort of, turn back time. But I was convinced that if they kept Mourinho, Spurs would have won that.
Shaun, you always come on this podcast and you're so complimentary and nice about Tottenham. You're not like the average Chelsea fan.
I'm not. Let's not get it twisted, Chris. All right. The only game I told you before, the only game I'm really interested in, the only fixture I look for, the first thing once the Premier League fixtures come out in June, first fixture I look for, when are Chelsea playing Tottenham at White Hart Lane? First thing I look for.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I want to make sure I'm there. When are Chelsea playing Spurs at Stamford Bridge? Right. I want to make sure I'm there. The only game I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And it will set my season up. Listen, I'll be as happy as Larry tomorrow if we win tomorrow. Believe you me. But in saying that, listen, Spurs are a good team. I'm not going to turn around and basically say that they're not a good team and that they can't beat us. You beat us in 2023. You beat us 2-0. Remember Oliver Skip got that goal? In a 2-0 win?
I do. Yeah.
Listen, I was vexed for about 3 days, and I was on a cruise ship. It just ruined the rest of my trip that we lost to your mob.
Yeah.
So let's not get twisted. Okay, I'll always respect Tottenham Hotspurs as a football team in terms of history, their tradition, but I'm only interested tomorrow in that we leave White Hart Lane with 3 points.
I feel like I've wound you up a little bit now.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, maybe tomorrow. Chris, we're going to have lunch tomorrow, right? As I say, we have been friends for 50 years, and we've had this banter for 50 years. For 50 years.
Shaun, let's talk about some of your stars. Cole Palmer, what a player he is. I'm surprised that Manchester City let him go. 9 goals so far this Premier League campaign, 6 assists in 14 matches. Talk to us about Cole Palmer, what a special talent he is.
And you know what I love about Cole Palmer? He plays football like we used to play in the park. A little skillful little kid, you know what I mean? Who's taken his game from when he used to play in Manchester right into the Premier League. And it's just pure skill, pure thinking about the game. The pass he gave against, I can't remember what it was that in the what game was that? Where he just turned around, hit the pass, he dissected everybody, and we scored. Neto crossed it, and Jackson put it in the back of the net. That's the pass of the season. So for me, he just gone on and on and on, and will continue to be hopefully a Chelsea legend. And he's unfazed. Doesn't go to his head. Just play. All he wants to do is play football to the ability that he knows he can play. And he said to Pep Guardiola, "Listen, I want to play football.
Yeah,
you don't want me. You know, guess what?" And I think he scored in the Super Cup before he left for Man City. Why would you let that go?
Yeah. You must always think you've got a chance, though, Shaun. If other players are not giving 100% in matches, and you've got Cole Palmer in your team, you must always think you've got a chance.
Absolutely. But you see, what I'm, the sort of hard men are beginning to sort of target him. You know, that tackle against Leicester when I don't know who it was, but raked his stuff down his Achilles. I hate things like that. Play the game. So he's done really well. Neto has been a revelation when he comes on. He's been an absolute revelation. His crossing, his pinpoint accuracy, and that's why Jackson should basically be saying thank you very much every single time. So he's been a really good signing. Caicedo has come on now, so I take it all back. Cucurella, as I say, the Chelsea faithful wanted him out of the club. And when I say we wanted him out of the club, we were burning effigies. We wanted him out of the club. But as I say, it's amazing how you can turn your game around, turn your performances around, and his performances with Spain in the summer, he just basically brought that back to the club, and he's been fantastic.
Yeah. Jadon Sancho from Manchester United. Were you surprised by that one? How's he got on for you?
I was, yeah. When he's come on, he's shown flashes of what he can do. So I've been quietly impressed with that. But as I say, always remember, Chris, only 11 players can wear a shirt at any one time. And I like the way how Maresca is managing. I mean, there were rumours of disgruntlement, especially with Nkunku not starting. I think he should be starting myself personally. But at least he's sort of, mixing it up. João Felix is getting game time as well. So, he's basically said to the players, listen, I'm trying to manage the squad. It's a lot of football to be played. Be patient. You're going to get your game time. And when they've got their game time, they've come on and they've done the business.
Shaun, what have you made of João Felix? Because I see all this hype about him all the time, but I don't really see a lot on the pitch. Or am I wrong?
Okay. The first time he came, he just didn't do anything. I was really surprised that we re-signed him. But the flashes he's shown, especially in the European games, he's done really, really well. And when he's come on and played the Premier League game, again, I've been impressed with what I've seen. But again, as I say, that midfield we've got there is settled. Caicedo, Lavia, Fernandez when he comes in. That is that midfield. If that grows together, that is going to be a formidable midfield in years to come. Formidable. I just love Lavia. He's been one of our greats. So I'm so glad that he's gaining a consistency in terms of fitness now, because every time he's been playing. I mean, he gave away the penalty against Leicester. Okay, we were 2-0 up and cruising. but he's been a revelation.
Shaun, let's talk a little bit about Nicholas Jackson. Of course, he scored 4 goals in 2 Premier League appearances against Spurs, including the hat-trick that you spoke about in the 4-1 win last season. That was the downfall for us at the start of last season after those 10 games. So far this Premier League season, he's scored 8 times, providing 3 assists in 13 games that he's played in. Have you seen vast improvement in him? Do you think that he can become a better player as well, a better finisher?
I think he can become a better finisher. I remember when we first signed Drogba in the first couple of seasons. Okay, he was falling over, had a little Bambi about him, but he developed into an all-time great. Now, the same could happen for Jackson because I've got to be impressed. I've got to sort of acknowledge the fact that he has done a business in front of goal. I still think he needs to be a bit more consistent, but. I think he can actually develop into a really, really good player, providing his consistency in taking his chances rises more than it is now. Even though he scored 8 Premier League goals this season, I still think there's more to come.
Madueke is having a good season as well. He's played 13 times, scored 5, 2 assists. Talk about what a threat he's going to be against Tottenham.
He's a threat, but he needs to be more consistent in terms of his end product. I mean, he was fantastic against Wolves. He'd been brilliant for England, but sometimes, I mean, the first goal he set up for, I think it was, who was it? Ollie Watkins against, was it the Republic of Ireland or one of those games? It was excellent. But sometimes the end product is not consistent. Once he becomes a consistently a winger who delivers crosses when they need to be delivered, look up at the right time, then put the cross in, he will be a handful. Not only for Chelsea, but also for England.
Shaun, at the start of the show, you mentioned Brennan Johnson and said that's one player that you're fearing in this game against Chelsea. 6 Premier League goals so far. What have you made of his turnaround? Because he was actually, he came off social media because of the slating he was getting from a lot of Tottenham Hotspur fans. He seems to have turned this season around. He always seems to be at that back post now, lurking for that tap-in, which he scored quite a few this season in various different competitions. But what have you made of the turnaround in him and his season?
Because he's getting into those positions, he's ghosting into those positions where he should be. There's where you want him. If he's coming from the back stick, you want Brennan Johnson coming in, and that's exactly what he's been doing. And he's been a revelation. I'll tell you, I'd like to really see you do well at the club. Werner needs to stop running in straight lines. Werner's so quick, it's ridiculous. You see how he burnt up Walker the other day to give that for the second goal. So you can see what he can do in terms of pace, but sometimes he needs to add guile to that pace. And that's why, as I say, the Chelsea faithful were exasperated with him. Because he never had that guile. He was always running offside. You're quick, but learn to arc your run sometimes. And he just kept running in straight lines, which was so infuriating. But he can do well. He can do well.
I think when Timo Werner does well in a Tottenham Hotspur shirt, Shaun, it's normally that he doesn't have to think about it. If he hits the ball first time, it's normally a good finish or a good assist. But when he has time to think about it, like one-on-one situations, the amount he's missed is unbelievable. And again, he's been heavily criticised.
Yeah. Same thing happened at Chelsea. But you look at his medal count, especially in this sort of 2 years at Chelsea, he won a lot of gongs.
Yeah.
But what he needs to do, as I say, for me, you won't lose that pace, but add a bit of guile. If he had, I still think he went to the wrong club when he came to England. He should have gone to Liverpool. Liverpool made for him.
Shaun, you mentioned James Maddison. Of course, he had a really good start to his Tottenham Hotspur career when he came in the summer before last. So far this season, he's scored 5 goals, 3 assists in the 14 games. He's been dropped a couple of times by Ange Postecoglou to the bench. He captained us on Thursday against Bournemouth in our 1-0 defeat. Of course, out of the England squad, what have you made of him, his season, and what does he need to do now to impress Postecoglou going forward, the Spurs fans, and of course, most importantly, Thomas Tuchel for England?
Show that consistency. Show what got you into the England squad in the first place. I love James Maddison. I just love his cheekiness. I just love his style. I just love the way he plays the game. Playing between the lines. But he needs to do that consistently. And once somebody like his game drops off, he looks awful. He looks completely awful. And for me, the 3 months he spent out after the injury he got against Chelsea against us last year, he was not the same player. You know, sometimes it takes you some time to get back into, especially, I mean, he had a bad ankle injury. It was bad. It took him time, but he never hit the heights that he hit when he first started the season. And that's what cost him a place in the Euro squad, which is unfortunate, actually, because I like James Madison. And, it's a shame that, he was so thrilled to get into the World Cup squad in Qatar, but it was carrying an injury, so he didn't get an opportunity to shine. And sometimes I think that the Euros is a really good opportunity for you to actually play in a major tournament, shine, because then that will then set you up for the next World Cup. And he's now starting back to square one in terms of turning in consistent performances, whereby the manager, Thomas Tuchel's got to look at him and say, listen, you're the man. But the problem what Madison's got now, there are a lot of young guns who are coming up. The Aston Villa young player, you've got the one from, you've got Morgan Gibbs-White, you've got the one from Aston Villa, he's really good. You've got Angel Gomez, who's done well. So there's a lot of young guns now who have played for England over the last 6 months, at least 2, 3, 4 times. Curtis Jones, they're ahead of him. So what Madison's got to do, he's got to have a hard look at himself. I'm 28 years old. I'm at a prime. But what I need to do now is to show consistency in that prime to basically force the issue whereby I'm on the plane to America in 2 years' time. And
Shaun, as we've seen, I was going to mention Heung-min Son because he's 32 now. He's in the last year of contract. His contract ends in the summer. It has been widely reported that Spurs will trigger the 1-year extension in his contract, taking him at the club for another year. But I wanted to ask you your opinion because at Stamford Bridge over, many years, we've seen Chelsea offload a number of players when they've even been at the top of their game. What do you think is going to be that decision for Son? Do you think he will end up staying at Spurs for another year? Is that the right decision for him and the football club?
I think so. Spurs, as I say, they're still in transition and you still need that experienced wise head. And Son is still a very good footballer. Let's not get it twisted. My mate sometimes is infuriated with Son, but I still think he's a very good footballer. And I still think you still need that wise, experienced footballer to guide the Johnsons, to guide the sort of Solankes, to guide the sort of Richarlisons, in relation to being a consistent striker, what he has been over the last 10 to 12 years. And he will go down as a Tottenham legend. So I still think he should, they will trigger it, he will stay, and deservedly so. I think his swan song will be at the end of the next World Cup. South Korea will obviously get there. And he'll probably sort of, be 33, 34, probably go off to the States and wind his career down. Deservedly so. But I still think they should trigger that extension. And he's been a good leader.
Yeah, I agree. Solanke, of course, signing from Bournemouth. A lot of money in the summer. Some people raise their eyebrows at that. 11 games so far for Tottenham in the Premier League, 4 goals, 2 assists. What have you made of him? Of course, he's been hampered by a number of injuries this season as well. He does a lot of pressing, Shaun, and I believe as a Spurs fan that the service does need to be better to someone like him who can be in and around that 6-yard box to grab so many tap-ins. But he's such a hard-working player. Absolutely.
And because remember, he started at Chelsea. A lot of people don't remember Dominic Solanke is a World Cup winner. He done really, really well in the sort of England youth setups. Then he came to Chelsea, he wasn't given a chance because his path was blocked by this superstar, that superstar. He then went to Liverpool, and again wasn't given the opportunity. Probably those clubs were too big for him at that stage. And him going to Bournemouth, I'm not saying that was his level, but that gave him an opportunity to be consistent. And when you saw the consistency, you saw the goals. So, okay, I thought £65 million was a bit pricey, but for a return of 4 goals in 11 games and a couple of assists, and as you say, he does really work hard. He presses from the front. and deservedly he got a recall in the England team after 7 years. I mean, fair play to him.
Yeah,
but
of course,
you're quite right. You're quite right. Spurs do need the wide men. You don't really play with the wide men, but somebody like Timo Werner, you're running in a straight line, but look up because these guys are making a run. Put in a decent delivery because, as I say, Brendan Johnson's always there, and you can see sometimes, especially in the final third, where James Madison I think is really effective because when he does play between the lines, him and the Song when they really link up. That goal he scored against Man City was superb. Great interplay. But sometimes, if you've got a striker like Solanke, or you've got somebody coming in the back stick like Brendan Johnson, your wide men have got to get down those flanks, or if Udoji's getting down and he's overlapping, whip that ball in because they'll be there.
Sure, I don't think there's any doubt that Dejan Kulusevski has been our star man so far this season. He's been a different quality this season. What have you made of him? And let me also ask you, what Spurs players do you think would get into the Chelsea starting 11?
He would. He definitely would. Your goalkeeper definitely would be my starting 11. Absolutely, 100%. I would like Van der Ven. He's a very, he can read the game well. The only sort of dodgy game he had last year was when, as I say, he played against Newcastle, and I think Alexander Isak ran him all over, and I was surprised. Just ran him all over the place, and he just didn't know who he was. But guess what? Everybody's entitled to one bad game. But apart from that, he's been really consistent, and I probably would take Ramiro. As I said, I'd like to take your two centre halves, and put them in the back four.
But just don't play the high line.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't be playing a high line. Absolutely not. They would not be playing a high line. We don't play a high line. If we had those two centre halves playing for Chelsea, we would definitely be in a conversation.
Shaun, let's talk about Tottenham's season so far because, of course, we've played 14 games as well. 6 wins, 6 defeats, 2 draws, which, of course, is very inconsistent. You don't know what you're going to get with Tottenham. No, we can either we win one week, lose the next, etc., etc. So the 6 wins against Everton, Brentford, Manchester United, West Ham, Villa and City. The 2 draws against Leicester and Fulham, and the 6 defeats against Newcastle, Arsenal, Brighton, Crystal Palace, Ipswich and Bournemouth. Now, of course, I went to the game against Bournemouth on Thursday. What a trip that was. I ended up going to bed 42 hours later, getting back at 4 a.m, doing a radio interview at 6, and then went straight to work. I tell you, absolute nightmare. That's why I'm feeling so tired right now. What did you make of that performance against Bournemouth? Because, these are games that Spurs should be winning. No disrespect to Bournemouth. They're a good footballing side.
Okay. I have I always take issue when you say no disrespect to Bournemouth or no disrespect. Listen, the Premier League now, I've got players who are... Okay,
what I meant, Shaun, no disrespect. What I meant is, if Spurs want to be a top 4 side, you need to go to places like that.
Absolutely, I get that. Exactly.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, I get that. If you want to be a top 4 side, you should be... and again, it's the consistency. Spurs need to add that. And somebody needs to pull Postecoglou aside and say, look, Andrew, you're a great manager. Yeah, listen, okay, you won 5 trophies out of 6 in Scotland. Brilliant. Yeah, you was a really good coach with the Australian team at one point. Yeah, you've done well in this league. But here's a different kettle of fish. You've got to be flexible in your tactics. You've got to be. This high line Spurs constantly keep on playing. That is why, which contributes to their inconsistency.
Shaun, what did you make of when you saw those clips of Ange Postecoglou going over to the fans, confronting the fans that they're very unhappy? A number of strong swear words were being thrown at Ange, including comments about his size. People aren't happy with the manager. And this is, Bournemouth away, his top loyalty points. These are guys that go, all over the place, all around Europe watching Tottenham Hotspur. These are the diehard Spurs fans. What did you make of the confrontation with Ange? Because this isn't the first time it's happened either.
Well, I personally think that, Ange Postecoglou is a sort of no-nonsense Australian who doesn't stand for no nonsense. And I personally think that you should rise above that. You should rise above that. going over to argue with fans is not getting your fans on side.
Yeah.
Certainly not getting your fans on side. The way you get your fans on side is to make sure that your tactics, what you convey to your players, are flexible enough to know that when you need to sort of drop back when you're under the cosh, you've got the players who can do that. Right. Offensively going forward, Spurs are good.
Yeah.
Spurs are good offensively going forward. But as I say, Chris, the Achilles heel is the inability for Postecoglou to be more flexible than he should be. That's it.
Shaun, have you been surprised?
The best game I saw Spurs play this season was against Manchester United. They took them to the sword. Quick and decisive football. You saw, I can't remember who it was stepping into midfield, initiating play, knocking it down the flanks, ball in the cross, bang. That's what you want. Quick, incisive football. And that was a brilliant performance by Spurs. Then I look, following week, you go to Crystal Palace and you fold like a deck chair. And you think to yourself,
what do you put that down to? Because when we travelled to the Etihad, you beat the champions Manchester City 4-0, which, let's face it, many teams suffer at the Etihad. They hadn't lost there for 2 years in the Premier League. So Spurs get a great result like that. And then, like you mentioned the Crystal Palace game a minute ago, then we have Ipswich at home. They haven't won a game all season. And then they come to Tottenham.
Yeah, all season. Right? All season. If that doesn't get you up, and you think, and that must be frustrating for a Spurs fan. I went for it last season with Chelsea. You're losing to this team. You're losing these games here. Why are you losing these games? But I'm not saying because of the fact that we have a divine right to win, because we don't. No team has a divine right to win, because some of these teams now. You look at Brentford at home. Brentford they're built like a fortress there. They are invincible. But you think Brentford, Tottenham, on paper that should be no match. So what we as you said earlier, Chris, which is brilliant. Take come with this condescending, high horse, looking down at attitude towards certain teams, certain competitions, right? Be more hungry, be more hungry and more consistent, especially in relation to the way you play the back, and you'll see a different Tottenham. I still think Postecoglou is a man who should be given the opportunity to do so, because as you said earlier, Chris, since 2019, you've had 7 managers.
Yeah.
Where's the consistency? Another manager coming in now is going to say, well, I'm going to rip up the sort of plans now. This is my philosophy. Guess what? I want these players. Mr. Levy, can I have X million pounds? Now, the one thing, a lot of people criticise Daniel Levy. I think, funny enough, right, I've got secret admiration for him. The way in which, as I say, when it comes to negotiating, guess what? He will get that penny for that transfer fee. And secondly, he's back to all these managers. They can't turn around. The managers which have been fired, they can't turn around and say Spurs kept onto the purse strings, because they didn't. They loosened them. The £65 million you said, what was the name of that player?
Tongi Ndombele.
Came there with a big reputation.
Yeah.
They wanted him. Okay. He was the biggest disappointment. Turned out to be one of the biggest white elephants. So no, the Spurs fans can't say about Daniel Levy that he hasn't loosened the purse strings, because he has. What it is, the managers have come in, the players they've signed have let them down.
Do you think that he will get the time from the fans, Shaun? Because I feel like I'm in the minority right now of wanting this to work for Ange. I am an Ange in, and I can't even believe that we're having this conversation with, are you Ange in or Ange out? Because I'm very much behind the manager. But are you surprised that he's getting that criticism from the away fans? And losing to Chelsea on Sunday, some people are saying that he should go.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But he didn't do himself no favours by basically saying, firstly, I'm always a second season manager who puts trophies on the table, and you're putting out a consistent team like that because of the fact that you're inflexible about your tactics. And secondly, the one thing you don't do, right, even if they're saying you should be sacked in the morning, you don't go there and basically want to be having a row with your fans. You're not going to get them on side. They're going you've lost them straight away. They want you out. So he made a mistake there, and the only way he can get them back on side, as I say, is by winning matches. I hope it doesn't happen tomorrow, but let's hope that he backs his boast by basically putting the Carabao Cup on the trophy table at the end of February.
Shaun, can you imagine if Ange was sacked at some point during this season because the fans were unhappy, or Daniel Levy was unhappy with the league position, or going out of various cups, etc.? You know, where do Spurs go next? Because I always say this to people who say, "Oh, get rid of the manager," because, like I mentioned, all those managers, you bring in win now managers like Jose and Conte, of course, two former Chelsea managers, I might add. They weren't successful. You then hit the major reset button, sell Harry Kane, spend a lot of money, which Ange Postecoglou has, but I still believe that there is more to be spent and more work to be done. Of course, nothing is perfect, but I do see what he and the football club are trying to do. I know a lot of people are doubting that at the moment. What would you say to those doubters?
What I'd say to them is that you've got to keep the faith. And you know who you should look to? You know who you should look to for an example of that? Mikel Arteta. 3 years ago, do you remember everybody was singing Spurs, Arsenal bottom of the league? Listen, that was, the Spurs fans were dreamland when they saw that. But you know what the Arsenal hierarchy did? They backed him. Didn't sack him. Okay, you use a phrase, and I can understand that as a Spurs fan, that Arsenal bottled winning the last 2 Premier Leagues. They didn't bottle it. It's just that Man City was just too good. Yeah, they should have won.
No, Shaun, they bottled it. They bottled it, mate.
Well, they should have won it. They should have won it in 23. I do agree with that. They fell apart. Then those draws were their undoing. But what I'm trying to say to you, at least they were in a position to bottle it because they had the support. They had the support of the hierarchy at Arsenal. Basically said, you know what, we're putting our trust in you. We're going to back what you say, and they backed him. He brought in his own team, his own players. Look at them now. I personally think Arsenal have got the best back five, one of the best back fives in Europe. I think their defense just looks strong. Yeah, and what I like about the defense, not only can they defend, their centre halves can score goals because they join the sort of attack. Their set pieces are second to none. So I still think that the Spurs faithful. I totally get the frustration, and I totally get the anger of the fans who, as you quite rightly say, they are so loyal. They go home and away. They're entitled. I've got to admit though, Shaun, it does feel like a bit of a mess, and perhaps my tiredness doesn't help either since Thursday, because some of the fan base was singing about Daniel Levy and the board, or chanting that they want the board gone. Some fans in the Bournemouth away end were singing about the manager. As we know, Ange come and confronted the fans, and some fans are rowing amongst themselves. Even I've had a couple of digs here in the comments by talking to you, saying that I want Ange in. Some people are criticising me now because I want Ange in, and of course, a lot of the fans are digging some of the players out. So there seems to be criticism amongst everyone at the moment. And what you should have, Chris, is unity. You need unity at this stage. And that's what happens with Spurs. The inconsistency, the sort of arguments, the sort of frustration, the disintegration. And the next thing you know, apathy sets in, and Levy pulls the trigger. And next thing you know, somebody's sacked, and you start all over again. So Spurs need to build a solid foundation on which to actually build. You can't win trophies without the solid foundation. You can't, and that's why I say the fans have got to give Postecoglou a chance. The chance which he will have should review at the end of the season, because if you haven't put that trophy on the cabinet like you said you were going to, then we're going to ask questions. One day Ramos. One day Ramos came in for what? He was there for about 3-4 months. Guess what he did? Bang, put a trophy on the table. They got rid of him. George Graham came in for how long? How long was he there at Spurs? 6 months? What did he do? Bang, 1999. Put a trophy on the table.
But there does seem to be a bit of arrogance, I believe, Shaun, from the Spurs fans, because it's like, oh, we haven't won a trophy under this manager, blah, blah, blah. And then talking about Ange's results. Now, I think a lot of people think that Ange Postecoglou came into a football club where we were delivering trophies year after year.
Exactly.
We weren't. It's been nearly 17 years. And he came into an absolute mess, and he's trying to sort it. And you can't just, it can't be done in 5 minutes.
No, it can't. Right? It cannot, and that's what I'm talking about, and that's why I think a lot of rival fans turn on Spurs fans, because they think they got the divine right. Sometimes they think Spurs think sometimes they invented football. Really? Okay. Come off this nostalgia of the 80s when you had the Glenn Hoddles and the Mickey Hazards, and they were bringing trophies here, there, and everywhere. You still never won the league. Yeah, you're a great cup team, but you never won the league. Yeah, never won the league. Okay, you won the Europa Cup in '84. Great. But that was the watershed. And that's what the Spurs, that you're quite right, Chris, and I love your honesty, because of the fact that there's no divine right. You haven't won anything since 2008.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping that Ange turns it around, and I'm hoping, obviously,
I hope he doesn't turn it around tomorrow. Hope he doesn't turn it around tomorrow. Yeah, after tomorrow. Yeah, great. Not tomorrow. I don't want him to turn around tomorrow. But what I do want him to do, I want you to deliver that second season trophy which you've done throughout your career.
Yeah.
Don't be getting into a slagging match with your fans, because the fans have a right to complain when they see when they see the inconsistency on the pitch. They have a right to complain. Absolutely. Yeah. Of course they do.
But when Ange did say about this second season thing, he was just stating a fact, Shaun. I do feel like it's been taken out of proportion a little bit, because
Chris, you made yourself a hostage to fortune.
Mm.
If you put that trophy on there, that's what I liked about you see Eric Ten Hag. Oh, okay, he turned out to be a bit of a nightmare. But you know what he turned around and said? Guess what? 2 years I've been at Manchester United, and I'm the only Manchester United manager in the history of the club. The history of the club to have won 2 trophies in my first 2 years.
Yeah.
Who else has done that?
Yeah, true. Very true.
Right. So that's what I think Postecoglou should have said. Put the trophy in the cabinet and say, well, you see, that's what I do. Okay, I might have won him first, but I'll win him my second. But you said it now. Okay, it may have been tongue-in-cheek, but you said it. So now the Spurs faithful want to see you do it. Because that's what you brought. You were brought into the club to bring success, to bring silverware. But what we're seeing, we're losing to Ipswich at home. We're losing to Bournemouth away. We're losing to Crystal Palace away. We're beating Man City 4-0. We're beating Man City in the League Cup. But it's not consistent. So you can understand the Spurs' frustration in terms of the fans. I totally get it. But at the same token, the Spurs fans have got to be realistic. They've got to be realistic. It's not going to happen overnight. And come off this nostalgia high horse that, we've done it before. I'm not interested in history. Spurs fans are interested in the here and now. The here
Shaun,
and now.
Do you think the Spurs will win a trophy this season?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, I think they'll win the Carabao Cup. When we got knocked out, I said, well, yeah, I think they can do it. You beat the favourites. Why not? Yes. Wow. Yes. I think they'll win the Carabao Cup.
Okay. Let's talk about some facts and stats ahead of this Chelsea game. Spurs have lost 8 of the past 11 Premier League games against Chelsea, drawing 2 and winning 1. I asked you this before when you were last on doing a match preview with me. Why do you think that Spurs always struggle against Chelsea? Because this is a fixture. We've only won once in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge, which is absolutely unbelievable. Ridiculous stat on our part. Why do you think that is?
Guess what, Chris? I can't put my finger on it. I just can't. I just cannot. But the one thing I will say, I'm enjoying it, and long may it last. There have been Spurs teams who have really been up for it and still lost. But Spurs have got to remember, whenever a game starts, it's 0-0. Whenever a game starts, nobody has an advantage. There's no first leg lead. It's 0-0. So the players have got to be up for it. The players have got to believe that we can beat that mob. When we play any team, Chelsea, Spurs in particular, we think, guess what? We need to beat that one. We just really need to beat. And I can imagine Pochettino, it gave him great pleasure last year doing a double over Chelsea, over Spurs.
Yeah.
Immense pleasure.
Yeah.
And he drilled it into them. He drilled it into them because he know what it was like to be on the receiving end. So, guess what? I'm a Chelsea fan now. Guess what? I want you to take the game to them and give it to them. And that's exactly what I'm looking for tomorrow.
What does it ever bother you that the fact that Chelsea or Spurs employ ex-Chelsea managers? Because of course it was very different when Pochettino went to Chelsea. How did you feel about that?
I love the fact that he was coming, because for me, Pochettino, from the minute he was at Southampton, from the minute he was at he knows how to bring and develop young players. Simon Van Dijk, didn't he? Sadio Mane was under his watch, wasn't he? These are players who were fantastic at Southampton. And Southampton, why do you think Spurs went in for him? Harry Kane was playing for, he was at Leicester, he was in Leyton Orient. He said to him, guess what? You're going to be my centre forward. Can you imagine what that done to a young striker who basically had a manager, right? Who basically gave him the confidence to say that I want you to be leading the line. That is why Harry Kane was off the charts. That is why Dele Alli, for that small time when he was one of the best ghost midfielders, ghosting in about 3 years until he just basically just lost the plot. Fantastic. You had two pillars of those two Belgian centre halves were magical. You had Christian Eriksen. Christian Eriksen was at his peak. So he knows how to. Do you remember when you beat us? When was it? It was. You beat us 5-2 or 5-1?
5-3.
5-3.
In the league game, yeah? Harry Kane. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah.
Christmas. It was a New Year's game, it was. I was in Jamaica. I wanted to hang myself in the toilet afterwards. But Spurs are fantastic because they had a young team who are eager, hungry, and determined to take the game to Chelsea. And that's what Spurs need. That's what Spurs need to actually get back into there. And they had a manager who believed in them. Yeah,
that's up there with one of my favourite Tottenham-Chelsea games. Actually, that one that was electric. That was electric at White Hart Lane. Yeah,
my mate, Chris, who I'm going to meet tomorrow, he took time out to meet me in Jamaica, and he said to me, "You watching this?" And I said, "Of course I'm watching it." And he just loved the fact that he could give it to me. And that's all about the bands. That's great. It hurts, but that's part of the banter.
Shaun, Chelsea have won 5 out of their 7 visits to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium since 2019 in all competitions, Spurs winning 1, the other one being a draw. Now, one thing I absolutely hated watching the other day was a clip of the overlap, I believe, and it was Frank Lampard saying that we always used to go to Tottenham and call it 3-point lane, and then Gary Neville laughed and said, "Oh, we used to do that as well. We used to do the same." I hate seeing clips like that. And, what do you put it down to? Because I've just said to you about how hard it is for Spurs to go and win at Stamford Bridge, once in Premier League history since 92. Yeah, and Chelsea have won 5 out of 7 in all competitions since 2019.
Because if you know you can win there, you're going to be confident. That's what we... okay, that's the banter among my friends. I said, we on Sunday, I said, 3-point lane. Where's that? Tottenham Hotspur, mate. This is where we're going. Yeah, because it's ingrained into us. I'm not expecting. I want us to win, but as I say, Chelsea have developed a mentality that when we go to Spurs, we expect nothing less than leaving with nothing least. The least we should be leaving with is a point. Other than that, guess what? We're going to do to win, and that's it. That's what's going to be driven into them tomorrow. We're going there to win. We played you 4 times in 2022. We won all 4, and the score. And I used to say in my text, I said, we scored 8 times. You didn't score against us once. Not once. And that is the attitude that the Chelsea players have when we go to Spurs. No matter what era, since the 1990s, no matter what era. Listen, when you go, my favourite victory over you, the best one I watched it the other day.
Oh, don't spoil it. I was enjoying this podcast, Shaun.
The Christian Gross, remember his first ever game? When they, and we beat you 6-1. Oh,
yes.
Yeah. So you've got your favourites, I've got mine. That is my favourite one of all time. In 1997, we absolutely pulled the trousers down and gave it a good spanking. That's what I like.
We couldn't give him the train ticket home fast enough.
No, exactly. But you know, guess what? I hope it's a competitive game tomorrow, and I hope it's an exciting game. But ultimately, I want us to win 3 points.
Well, Shaun, Chelsea are unbeaten in 7 games right now in all competitions, including the last 4 in a row. Spurs have won just 1 of their past 6 games in all competitions, drawing 2 and losing 3. How are you feeling ahead of this game? Are you confident?
I'm confident, but I'm not taking it for granted because you know what? Guess what? Stats mean nothing. Stats mean nothing. And if the Spurs boys are up for it tomorrow, they'll be up for it. And I'm sure, and Postecoglou is going to say to them tomorrow, listen, if you can't get up for this, then you know what, guess what? Go home. And believe you me, those Spurs boys will be up for it tomorrow. They will. I have no doubt about it. I'm not interested in the last 7 games, what Spurs have done. All I'm interested in is how we do tomorrow. Not interested. They mean nothing to me tomorrow when the full-time whistle blows. I want to look at the full-time whistle blows and to see that we score more goals than you. And I'm sure we think the same. Chris, you think
Sure,
the same?
I know you've said that you're not interested in stats, but I've got a lot more.
That's all.
Shaun, Spurs have kept just 1 clean sheet in their last 22 top flight home fixtures. 1 clean sheet.
That's shocking.
That must give you a bit of confidence.
It does. And I'm sure Nicholas Jackson's going to be confident tomorrow. I'm sure he's going to be more confident tomorrow. And once our midfield matches yours, right, and imposes ourselves on your midfield, then guess what? We're going to take the game. We're going to take the game to you tomorrow.
Do you know what? I absolutely love this comment here. It says, I can't believe that the legend Shaun Wallace is a Spurs fan.
No. Don't get it twisted. As you said, Chris, guess what? I'm a fan. Right? I'm a fan of football. Right? I don't like Tottenham. Never have done. I'll tell you the reason why. You know the reason why. It's in my book. I mentioned the reason why I don't like Tottenham. You beat us in the 67 Cup final, and you relegated us in 75. I've never forgotten that. Ever. And that's why, as I say, for me, right? For me, the only fixture. You ask my friends, I'll tell you, the only fixture I'm interested in, when's Chelsea playing Tottenham? Yeah. Make sure I'm there. The only reason I was there last year, I was prevaricating with Chris. Chris said to me, Shaun, do you want a ticket? I said, next thing you know, the ticket is gone. So I watched it at home. And I've got a dear friend of mine. He's my accountant, actually. He's called Mitch Hahn, right? He's a diehard. When I say he's a diehard Spurs fan, he hates the fact that tomorrow evening I'll be calling him because when I call, he won't answer my phone. If we beat you tomorrow, he won't answer my phone. But I'll ring his. I'll continue to ring his phone until he picks it up.
Well, Shaun, can I tell everyone on the podcast or everyone listening and watching what WhatsApp message you sent to me the other day?
Yeah, of course you can.
The video of your trophy cabinet and said, you know, Spurs would love a trophy cabinet like this.
You should. I wish you'd put it on.
I feel like I'm rubbing it enough.
Okay. Yeah, literally, because I knew he was going to mention it, bro. I knew he was going to mention it. Yeah, cool. I'll send that video to all my Spurs fans.
Yeah.
Same message. You'd love
it. I realised that you sent it to me twice. I thought, okay, just in case I didn't watch it the first time.
Exactly. Yeah. So make sure you watch it the second time, son.
Shaun, Chelsea have scored 57 times in 22 matches this season, the most of any top flight club. You must be very impressed with that.
Well impressed. As I say, I'm pleasantly surprised, right? Because to be honest, I didn't know much about Maresca, and although he won the league with Leicester last year, do you remember? There was 10 games in which they had a really bad wobble, and they lost 6 matches in a row. And you know, people were beginning to wonder whether or not Leicester were going to go up. But he steadied the ship, and he got them up. So I just hope it does happen. I hope it doesn't happen this year. But he seems to have had. He's got a better class of players to be working with. And the one thing I do like the fact that he's got a young squad who are hungry, who want it, or showing that they want it. So let's see how much you want it tomorrow, starting with tomorrow.
Shaun, one thing that I would say is the Fulham home game, the 1-1 draw last weekend. It was probably the worst atmosphere I've ever known, and I've been to every single game in all competitions at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in our new ground, and it was the worst atmosphere by a country mile. It was so quiet. This next stat I'm going to read out: Ange Postecoglou's side have conceded the opening goal in 13 of our 16 Premier League matches at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in 2024. That does worry me, the fact that if Chelsea do score first, the crowd is going to probably get on Ange Postecoglou's back.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of getting behind them, it's got to get behind them. Got to get behind them. I
love our Chelsea fans coming on here saying, "Get behind the team when you're 1-0 down."
Right. Listen. Remember last season, you were 1-0 up against us. Right, everything was going swimmingly well. Then all of a sudden, you stopped playing football. You had Van der Ven got injured. You had that rash decision by Romero.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was doing. Then guess what? We 1-1. We then had a disallowed goal. Then you went down to 9 men, and as I say, Chelsea were running out of ideas, and all Ange Postecoglou had to do was play a low block, 4-on-4. Leave Strong up front. He had a great chance. We almost made it 2-1, and so did the other guy, Bentancur. Remember, he hadn't played in ages. Bentancur came and was unlucky to miss that chance. But sooner or later, we were going to beat the outside trap, and that's exactly what we did. So Spurs need to be flexible in their tactics. If they're not, you're going to get done.
Shaun, 5 of Tottenham's 6 league wins in London derbies under Ange Postecoglou have been at home, and Chelsea have lost just 1 of their last 11 top-flight London derbies, winning 7 and drawing 3. You seem to have a very good record in London derbies.
We do. We do. West Ham was the bane of our life, but as I say, this year was the first time in about 7 years, actually, I saw us finally put West Ham to the sword.
Can you explain? Can you explain something to me? Why there is such a big rivalry between Spurs and Chelsea, and with Chelsea and Arsenal, it seems like you're good friends with them rather than big enemies against us. Why is that?
I think it starts back from the 80s when you used to sort of turn us over regularly. I remember you beat us 3-1 in the quarterfinals of the 1982 FA Cup, and Spurs. Although we're playing really good football, the Spurs fans used to look down on us. We were a second division club struggling, and you basically had the attitude what we got with you now. And once we started to string those impressive victories against you, it was just like, okay, we're playing Spurs, right? Okay, that's 3 points, and we take great delight. And I think the rivalry between Spurs and Chelsea fans now, in terms of dislike and distrust, I think it's even worse than your sort of distrust and dislike of the Arsenal. It really is. I'm telling you, it really is.
I feel like that intensified since the Battle of the Bridge.
Yeah. Oh, listen, that was one of the greatest things when Eden Hazard got that equaliser, and we helped snatch away that 2016 Premier League title. I celebrated for days.
Yeah. I've noticed, Shaun, the amount of digs that you've got in during this podcast, unbelievable. Shaun, Heung-min Son has scored just twice in 19 appearances against Chelsea in all competitions, none in the last 11. I remember him scoring a fantastic goal against Chelsea in the league at Wembley Stadium. But it seems that Chelsea keep Heung-min Son pretty quiet in these matches.
Yeah, and that's what we need to do tomorrow. And I just hope the centre halves, who I don't know if it's going to be Tosin tomorrow, is going to be playing. Colborne might come back in, but we need to keep an eye on Brennan Johnson. our Caicedo just needs to sit on James Madison because Madison's bound to start. If we can control them two, then I'm looking for a victory tomorrow.
Shaun, what have you made of Enzo Fernandez in a Chelsea shirt? Because he's got 7 assists so far in all competitions, the most of any Blues player, including 6 in his last 5 outings. What have you made of him? Because, of course, another big money move. Didn't impress, first of all, but come good now.
About time too. I was not impressed when we first signed him because he kept on moving the ball sideways. And for a World Cup winner who played fantastically well in Qatar, you weren't translating that into a blue shirt. And I used to think, what, we paid money for that? But now, I think the spark which he's received was that he was now being told, I don't care if you won a World Cup winners medal. I don't care if it costs £110 million. Guess what? You're not a guaranteed starter. And that's what's raised his level of performance. It's raised it. Because he's not guaranteed to start in the Premier League. Might start tomorrow. Not guaranteed, though. The only person in that midfield who is guaranteed to start is Caicedo.
Yeah.
It's Caicedo. So Enzo's been told now, listen, yes, okay, you've got a World Cup winners medal. Yeah, you've got a Copa America medal. But you know, guess what? This is the Premier League. And if you want to be known as a top-class player, you've got to be turning it in week out. And his passes are much more incisive now. Before they were... I used to call him the Argentinian Ray Wilkins, and I used to love Ray Wilkins, but sideways. Not interested in the sideways. Not interested in the side. This sort of safe pass. Safe pass here, safe pass here. And he wasn't doing it.
Shaun, lastly, what's your score prediction for Sunday afternoon?
3-1.
To Chelsea?
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a score draw. I'm going to go 2-2. I'm going to go for a classic game. Hoping that Spurs give absolutely everything and obviously win the game. But I think more realistically, I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. Hopefully a classic. Shaun, you mentioned it earlier, so we might as well give it a good plug now. Your book, Chasing the Dream. Tell everyone about it. What can they expect if they go over to Amazon?
If they expect you're going to be wildly entertained, wildly inspired about my love of law, my love of learning, my love of football. The fact that I told everybody that, although I actually specifically mentioned it, that I was going to play alongside Gary Lineker in the 1986 World Cup when I got as far as 10 in reserves. But although I didn't make it as a professional footballer, it sort of turned full circle by choosing mastermind subjects in football, which helped me become a mastermind champion 20 years ago. And it will be an inspiring story.
Shaun, through this journey of being on the chase and doing all your celebrity appearances, etc., who are some of the most interesting people that you've met?
Most of the celebrities, or as I say, I used to look at afar 25 years ago, who know who I am. So I don't really get overawed in relation to celebrities. I mean, we get on quite well. They're not my friends. My friends are the guys who I take the mickey out of, who take the mickey out of me when it comes to football banter and things like that. They're my true friends. So I don't really get overawed with sort of celebrity people, celebrity mode, because I just don't. Because I'm
down to earth.
Yeah, I don't get caught up with that. Not really.
Down to earth. That's why you're here, Shaun. That's why you're here.
Yeah, mate. Love you. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, mate.
I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll be smiling and you won't be at the full-time whistle. Shaun, tell everyone what you're up to at the moment. Where can people find you on social media?
On Insta, on TikTok, on X. That new one was called Blue, whatever it's called. I'm always posting all the time. So please follow me. I'd love you to follow me.
Shaun, you've been an absolute fantastic guest again. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll get you on again very soon. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
And I mean this sincerely. I do mean it. Although I want us to batter you tomorrow, I do want Spurs to win that Carabao Cup.
Thank you, Shaun. You're a legend. Absolute legend. Thank you so much, everyone. And we will see you on Sunday afternoon after the Chelsea game when hopefully Spurs have the 3 points. Fingers crossed. Come on, you Spurs.
Cheers, kid.